The Kansas City Chiefs have just finished up the 2024 NFL Draft and have signed 17 undrafted rookie free agents. That's right, 17 signed undrafted rookie free agents to a team that has just won back-to-back Super Bowls. The message from Brett Veach is clear. The only place to go is up. And Brett Veach will take all hands on deck in order to try to make that happen. One of the position groups that has long plagued these Kansas City Chiefs under Brett Veach, and I will offer some defense of Brett Veach in this situation. Look, so if you really want to get down to brass tacks, the Kansas City Chiefs have had trouble finding wide receivers. Well, wide receivers are notoriously finicky. I mean, you can look at the washout rate for wide receivers in the NFL, and it's incredible. The Chiefs have had some trouble at left tackle. Well, if you're picking at 32 every year, you're not going to be able to find very many left tackles, and the ones that you do find are guys that slipped because of some other reason. That's just the truth. And there's not a whole lot of true starting left tackles in the NFL. And if you want to talk about true starting level tackles, guys, the defensive tackle position is just as hard to find. So sure, you can find a big body. You can find a guy that's difficult to move around every once in a while. But the Chris Joneses of the world are extremely and exceedingly rare. The Kansas City Chiefs, however, have had trouble finding someone of starter quality just to put next to him. And I will not say that I believe the undrafted rookie free agent in question in today's video, Fabien Lovett, is going to step onto Arrowhead Field and be a starter. I'm not saying that at all. What I will say is that I don't see a whole lot of difference between his game and Derek Notty's. Also, I do think that Fabien Lovett is the best bet of any of these UDFA to actually take the field on regular team snaps for the Kansas City Chiefs this season. Which, in my opinion, begs the question, who is Fabien Lovett? The defensive tackle out of Florida State goes 6'4", which is in the 62nd percentile, 314 pounds, which is in the 88th percentile. Now, I am extremely displeased with the way the internet is going. Now, I know this sounds very stay off my lawn, but it used to be that you could find information from a team's pro day just by searching for that team's pro day. Now you have to jump through links, you have to follow some people on Twitter, you have to go here and there to bit and piece information that may or may not have even happened at a pro day. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know who it benefits for this to happen. But this is an observation that it's happening, and I hate it. Apparently, at said FSU Pro Day, Fabien Lovett ran a 5-flat 40-yard dash. He put up 26 reps on the bench press, had a 25.5-inch vertical jump, a 101-inch broad jump, ran the 3-cone drill in 7.56 seconds, and the short shuttle in 4.82 seconds. Now, you might notice there that nothing looks particularly promising. And that's correct. You might also notice there that nothing looks particularly embarrassing. And that's correct. But part of that is because I had to jump through so many hoops in order to find these numbers that I forgot to put a couple numbers on there. Now, physically, when you're talking about testing numbers, Fabien Lovett is not a freak. Fabien Lovett is a guy who looks like probably he can play defensive tackle in the NFL. He has a serviceable 40-yard dash. His bench reps are not going to impress anyone, but, he still did them. He didn't get under 15 or anything like that. His vertical leap is not impressive, but you're factoring in the fact that the guy's 314 pounds. He was actually 316 pounds at the pro day. The broad jump is an okay number, especially when you start talking about a run-stopping defensive tackle, things like that, but nothing particularly to write home about. However, 6 foot 4 inches tall is a pretty good height. 314 pounds is a pretty good weight. And then you get into the fact that Fabien Lovett has 35.5-inch arms. Fabien Lovett has an 84-inch wingspan, which is 95th percentile. Fabien Lovett has 10 3/8-inch hands, and those hands are very strong. So, Fabien Lovett's size itself is a pretty good size. He's just not some type of dominant physical freak. When you look at the right half of your screen, you're not going to notice anything that's going to blow your socks off over there either. These are his last 3 seasons in college. In 2021, he had 28 tackles and 4.5 tackles for loss. He had 2 sacks to go with that. In 2022, he missed some time, ended up with 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. And then last season, he had 22 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. Now, it is only fair to note that he was on the same defensive line as Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, so there were not a whole lot of sacks to go around. And just to point out the sheer madness that is football, I want to compare him, Fabien Love here, to a guy from last year's draft known as Carl Brooks, who ended up going to the Green Bay Packers in the 6th round. He was an NFL draft community darling because of what he was able to do while he was at Bowling Green. In his rookie season, in the NFL, he ended up putting up 20 tackles and 4 sacks. And he was known sort of as a pass rusher. He was 6 foot 3 3/8 inches, so a little bit shorter than Fabien Love's 6 foot 4. 303 pounds, so he was 11 pounds smaller than the 314 by Fabien Love. He had 31.5-inch arms, which is 4 inches, shorter than Fabien Lovett's. His hands were 9 1/8 inch, so about an inch smaller. He ran a 5.09 40-yard dash, so he was 9/100ths of a second slower than Fabien Lovett. He ran a 7.63 3-cone drill compared to Fabien Lovett's 7.56. His short shuttle was 5 flat compared to Fabien Lovett's 4.82. He had a 26.5-inch vertical jump, beating Fabien Lovett by an inch. He did 28 reps on the bench press compared to Fabien Lovett's 26, though Fabien Lovett once again does have much longer arms. And Carl Brooks had a 105-inch broad jump, which is 4 inches longer than Fabien Lovett's. So these guys, physically, as well as with the testing numbers, very close to the same guy. However, Carl Brooks entered the NFL with a reputation as a pass-rushing extraordinaire and, in fact, ended his rookie season with as many sacks as Fabien Lovett had in the last 3 years of college football. While and whereas Fabien Lovett is entering the NFL as a guy that is known strictly as a run stuffer. Now, looking at strengths and weaknesses here, the strengths of Fabien Lovett, he is a run stopper. He is able to clog up that middle, oftentimes warranting multiple blockers in the running game. He has a strong motor, and he is strong. Now, all 3 of these things sort of play off of one another. He is the guy in the middle of that line that an offense, when they're trying to run the ball, knows they're going to have to take out of the play. You're not going to be able to give Fabien Lovett the looky-loo And in fact, for some reason, there were multiple times where he was given that option at the college level where he just went completely unblocked. And the thing I like about his game is he did not hesitate in that situation. He just bull rushes straight ahead, and he knows that if he's going to make an impact on something, he's going to have to get there as fast as possible. Now, when we're talking about his hand size paired with his arm length, paired with his wingspan, guys, this is a run stopper. Now, that's at the college level, right? NFL running backs are the best of the best at the college level, so you're not going to have any plays where you get time off if the running back has the ball in his hand. But when Fabien Lovett gets his arms on someone, normally they go down. Now, he's not a crushing defensive tackle, but he gets his hands on someone and the play is over. That has worked for Fabien Lovett at the college level. And that wingspan really plays into his game. He's able to reach out and really snag a ball carrier. This is especially impressive when that motor he has is on display. He is able to get on the move, crashing down the line, and affect a play at the opposite, off tackle, basically. And then that last, on the positive side there, says strong. Guys, he has a very functional type of strength. He has a very forward type of strength. It would surprise me if he was not at some point in his life a wrestler, but I couldn't find anything on it. He has that type of strength that is very ergonomic in that it will use a person's body against them, sort of the way that a wrestler will do that. Now, over there on the weaknesses, number 1, pass rush, number 2, explosiveness, and number 3, ceiling. And these things, too, sort of all play off of one another just like the strengths. He's not going to give much in the pass rush department, but physically, I don't know why that is. I think part of it is he does not have a pass rush repertoire. The ball is snapped, and Fabien Lovett does his best to move forward. That seems to be his entire attack strategy, regardless of who he's going against, regardless of what the play type is, regardless of what exactly is going on the football field. Fabien Lovett sees that ball snapped and says, "I'm stronger than you." The problem is sometimes he runs into guys that are much more explosive than is Fabien Lovett, and so that ends up working out poorly. Now, I do not mean to suggest that he is getting pushed around on the football field. I didn't see one time he was put on rollerblades, but he will lose early in the rep from time to time. Now, because of number 2 on the strengths side of this list, even when he loses early in the rep, oftentimes he ends up having a good rep. And finally, there on the weaknesses side is ceiling. This is maybe ironic because Derek Nottie was a Florida State defensive tackle known as a run stopper as well. Derek Nottie was drafted 75th overall in that 2018 NFL draft, came in and made an immediate impact for the Kansas City Chiefs, playing 448 snaps. Then, the next season, he jumped all the way up to 599 snaps, and that, so far, was the pinnacle of his snap counts in the NFL. Derek Nottie entered the NFL as a decent run stopper and never ever got any better. Now, I'm not picking on Derek Nottie, but he's had 6 seasons in the NFL, and he's the same player. That just means that he entered the NFL basically at his ceiling. Fabien Lovett, in my opinion, is likely every bit as close to his ceiling as was Derek Nottie coming into the NFL. The one caveat that I will offer here is that I do believe that Fabien Lovett has the build in order to really sort of add a pass rush repertoire to his game. He does not have any of that right now. He will be playing next to Chris Jones. He will have Tamba Hali, at his disposal on some level. So maybe there is the promise that he develops a single pass rush move. And if he is able to do that, he may have a little bit of upside somewhere. But in my opinion, being this close to his ceiling is probably one of the reasons that he fell out of the draft. Now, what to make of Fabien Lovett as a Kansas City Chief? I really believe that he will be on the team this year. Now, what does that mean? So let's take a look at Fabien Lovett compared to Derek Nottie. Derek Nottie is ostensibly the starter next to Chris Jones. And I understand, 100% I understand that measurables aren't everything, right? We just went over how Carl Brooks has essentially the same measurables as Fabien Lovett, but they are very different players, especially if you're looking at them by reputation. Now, Derek Nottie is 6'1" tall. That's 3 inches shorter than Fabien Lovett. He is 317 pounds, which is 3 pounds lighter than Fabien Lovett is traditionally listed, but he, again, weighed in at 316, at his pro day. And I know this is a lot of numbers, guys, so I'm going to try to make it as digestible as possible. Fabien Lovett had 35-plus inch arms compared to Derek Nottie's 33.5-inch arms. Fabien Lovett had over 10-inch hands compared to Derek Nottie's 9 7/8. Here's a big one. Here's a very big one. Fabien Lovett ran a 5-flat 40-yard dash. Derek Nottie ran a 5.38 40-yard dash. The 20-yard short shuttle for Derek Nottie, 4.97 compared to 4.82 for Fabien Lovett. The three-cone drill for Derek Nottie, 8.15 seconds compared to 7.56 for Fabien Lovett. Now, somehow, Derek Nottie still had a better vertical leap with 27 inches compared to the 25.5 put up by Fabien Lovett. And Fabien Lovett had a 5-inch better broad jump at 101 inches compared to Derek Nottie's 96. Derek Nottie put up 25 reps on the bench press. Fabien Lovett beat him by a single rep. So everywhere with the exception of vertical leap, Fabien Lovett is a better athlete than Derek Nottie. Derek Nottie, who was again taken 75th overall. Now, obviously, the athlete isn't the only part of the game of football, especially at a position like defensive tackle. The one thing that is interesting about this rotation with Fabien Lovett is that Tershawn Wharton is really sort of a physical freak. Supposedly, the 6'1", 280-pound defensive lineman known as Tershawn Wharton put up a 35-inch vertical, a 10-foot broad jump, a 4.7 40-yard dash, and 32 reps of the bench press with 225 pounds. That is a monstrous performance for a defensive tackle. He's also not great against the run. And he's not a very big guy. Derek Nottie, not a very good athlete, pretty big guy. You have Fabien Lovett that comes in bigger than Nottie, and though he's not quite the athlete of Tershawn Wharton, he's a little bit better of an athlete than Derek Nottie. So he offers a decent middle ground between the two of those players. Now, one of the things that I really like about his game is that he gets his hands up in the pass rush department. So he ends up ruining a lot more passing plays than he ends up getting sacks. He is maybe not fast enough to get to the quarterback, but he's fast enough to get the quarterback off of his spot to throw. Now, when you're talking about this defense, if you can make that quarterback move a little bit, hold on to the ball for a split second, maybe Chris Jones gets there. He's also very good at getting his hand up in the air. He's 6'4", he has 35-inch arms. That hand gets pretty far up there. Now, Chris Jones is also good at getting his hands in the air, and so is George Karlaftis. It is completely believable to me that this team could lead the NFL in batted passes this year. If you want to get into the microcosms of the game, one of the things which might be interesting is how offensive lines, when Fabien Lovett is on the field, how offensive lines decide to designate their blocking schemes. Listen, if Chris Jones is on the field, Fabien Lovett is not going to get doubled. That's just point blank, period. So he's going to get the opportunity to win reps. And one thing you'll notice about his game is that he does not have a good first step. Probably he has a bad first step, but it seems to me like he actually has a pretty good second step and third step. If he gets that far into the rep and he's not taken out of the passing play, the ball hasn't been thrown, etc., he makes up some ground pretty quick. Now, as evidenced by a series of one-year contracts, Derek Nottie has not taken the position of second defensive tackle by the horns. He has not owned it. Neither, really, has Tershawn Wharton. Tershawn Wharton, who started only one game last year, and by the way, that one game ties his career high. He has started one game every year, but his abbreviated 2022 season. Tershawn Wharton played 518 snaps as a rookie, and it's only gone downhill from there, before last year playing in all 17 games, but seeing only 399 snaps. Now, I want to put some emphasis on that rookie season for Tershawn Wharton, coming in as a UDFA from Missouri Northwest Southeast and playing 518 snaps as a UDFA is impressive. Now, that was a much different defense, right? That was not last year's defensive unit. And Tershawn Wharton has done well for himself and for the Kansas City Chiefs in light of the fact that he was a UDFA from a directional school in Missouri. But just like with Derek Nottie, who, by the way, I'm not trying to discredit, he's done very well for himself as well, has never really gotten better. Neither of these guys have ever gotten much better in the NFL, and while unfortunately Fabien Lovett seems to be a guy who is reaching his ceiling as well, that ceiling might be higher than Derek Nottie's, and Fabien Lovett's floor might be higher than Tershawn Wharton's, meaning that Fabien Lovett is maybe just a safer prospect than either of those two. In my opinion, it would be an absolute win for Fabien Lovett to come in and get, say, 350 reps this year. 350 divided by 17 is about 21 reps per game. For reference, last season, Chris Jones played 741 reps, and there were times where it looked like they were really trying to limit his snap count, keep him fresher for other games, etc. Then you had Derek Nottie at 498, then Tershawn Wharton at 399, and if he were to play 350 reps, that would basically round out the position for the Kansas City Chiefs as far as last year's snap counts are concerned. Matt Dickerson had 190, Neil Farrell had 41, and Mike Pennell had 45. Keandre Coburn also had 9. Worth noting, by the way, that Mike Pennell had those 45 reps in 3 games. And, of course, he went on to single-handedly wreck the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Now, I would be absolutely fine with Mike Pennell only seeing 3 games of action again this year, because Mike Pennell is a little bit older, and I think you want to keep him fresh for the postseason, so I don't think he's 33 years old right now. He was born May 9th, 1991. So, happy birthday, Mike Pennell. But the most snaps Mike Pennell has ever played in a season were 2022 in Chicago, where he played 365 snaps. So, in my opinion, go ahead and leave Mike Pennell. If you think you can get Mike Pennell on the practice squad and he won't get poached by someone else, you do that until the postseason. And after that, when you're looking at last year's roster, would you rather have Fabien Lovett or Matt Dickerson? And I think the answer there is worst case scenario, it's a tie, right? I think that even though I have said that Fabien Lovett probably has a limited ceiling, you haven't seen that ceiling. I think we've seen that ceiling with Matt Dickerson. Also, whatever will become of Neil Farrell, this is the time for it. So I think when you are looking at things from a 3,000-foot perspective, right, looking down at the defensive tackle position for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think the addition of Fabien Lovett makes the Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle unit better than it was last year.